Hello, you wonderful mutants. It's me, Joel Clark, publisher of Lone Wolf Fist. That's right, it's published, available in PDF format currently, and I'm now right now working on the physical version. So that's a lot of formatting. Had an interesting breakthrough with that. Managed to get a master page that actually has the correct formatting for the print on demand for Drive RPG, and I got it applied to the whole text in my little experimental document. So that looks really, really nice. It solved certain problems in the text, so that's good. It created other different problems in the text, so that's going to require us a little bit of love. But that really important step is done, so that's great. I'm trying to, since it's out there and it's getting actual feedback now, I'm trying to listen to that and incorporate it into the text itself. There's a pretty good amount. Everyone approaches a game a little differently, and you never know what someone's going to need in a text or what you want it to do or what they need it to do. And I'm not sure how people are using it practically. There's a lot of big sections like the domain section that aren't super intuitive. Like, they make sense. I actually rewrote that one pretty extensively so that it all agreed with itself very well and hooked onto the other things pretty decently. But like, it it's pretty dense, and there's a lot of ideas in there. So it's a lot to take in, and I recognize that. Like, it's basically a whole like mini game on top of the role playing game you already have, and it's pretty complicated, and it has like really far reaching implications when you use it. So, man, also it's like, and I've been reading it and rereading it. It's not super clear what certain things are trying to do. I really tried to write it where it was like, answering the questions that would crop up in games. Like, we found a gold mine. What can we do with that? Like, that's a cool question. Answering it is sort of complicated though, because like the economy is a complicated thing, and the sort of higher echelons of economy and politic are, they're not intuitive. I had to study and research a lot to get to the point where I was able to abstract them in a way that was kind of communicatable to GMs and players. And I think that these rules will pay big dividends if people like run this game for like years. Like, if you're on like a year or more long campaign, and you've got to the point where the players have a domain that they're managing, I think these rules are really going to help you keep that game fresh. No one's there yet. I'm not there yet, And I wrote this damn game, so it's a theory. Maybe it works. I don't know. But they're not the most intuitive thing. So one of the things I've been doing is, now that I've got that really big formatting problem actually solved, and I just basically have to go through and update the text, I'm doing the remaining writing. I've got a Kung Fu Clan I'm writing right now, or not writing, but I'm editing it for someone who did write it, down to something I can put in the book. And I've got a Kung Fu style that I am writing for a backer, and those are going to go head in the book. I also wouldn't mind doing that Kaufu style that I wrote on the blog. Is really cool, and I think I actually wrote the whole thing to completion or really close to it, so I wouldn't mind putting it in there. The Kaufu are a cool idea, and it would be neat to kind of get a little taste of them before we go into All Above Heaven, where we have a lot more detail with that. Geez, sorry, there's a lot going on with this project. It's really near completion. But the current method of attack is I'm doing that also, again, because I'm getting like really high quality feedback on this game. I am adding some clarifying text to certain parts. Speaking of the economy, it's a little complex buying things right now. It's not horrible, but it's a fallen world, so the economy is uneven, and the availability of goods is also uneven. Also, I don't have goods lists in the game because they're boring to me, and because by necessity it would be inconclusive. Like, it wouldn't be complete. It'd be impossible to make a complete list of every item that was available in our modern world, plus all the ones available in the postmodern magical world that existed, plus the ones that were created during the apocalypse, plus all the ones that existed in antiquity that there are artifacts of and that are being reinvented, rediscovered, or remade, plus all the ones that have been innovated post-apocalypse. That's too many. And I guess I could make like a pretty big like 100-point chart per faction and say here are the things that are generally available to to adventurers. This thing is an adventurer in this world. There's lone wolf fists, which are a very specific niche, and what they need are weapons. That's what they need. And I got plenty of weapons. They've got magic weapons. I got mundane varieties of weapons, which are also categorical. So yeah, stuff like 50 feet of rope, 10-foot pole. That's not really the style of this game. First of all, although those things are useful in the Tactical Infinity, your raw power as one of the Lone Wolf Fist often makes them unnecessary. I mean, you just don't need rope when you can leap 50 stories in a single bound, you crazy Kryptonian. So yeah, you don't really need to tie people up, when you can paralyze them with your magic kung fu. It's just like you have more reliable methods that don't require mundane things. And what lone wolf fist is going to be held by human mundane rope? You need like that ribbon of adamantine they use to bind Fenrir to tie up someone on a permanent basis. It's not viable. You need other methods. So the needs of the lone wolf fist are necessarily abstracted. The economy, though it has a lot of detail, I think of it in terms of character power, which is to say, being able to eat, being able to wage war, being able to become wealthy, such as that your wealth can change the world. And it really is all kind of a method to funnel things like artifacts, war weapons, mercenaries, training manuals, things like that, into and out of player hands and deadly NPC hands. Like, that's really what all of that's for, if you get right down to like what the game function of it is. And I think it's easy to get lost in the weeds of that because the market section's pretty robust. But at the end of the day, I just want a kind of a more or less workable abstract system for you roll into a settlement, what can you find at their local market? And that does exist in the game right now. Actually, let me pull it up specifically. The price and availability chart on 185 gives a good set of standard prices. I think it's best to use those as suggestions, not as like this, because it's assuming like fair merchants and like looking around to get the best price. You won't always do that. You'll usually get gouged as a newcomer to a settlement, especially if you look exotic and rich, which most lone wolfists at least look one of those things. The market rating chart is currently on page 183. That one is the money. Because what that one does is it relates the level of development of a given area to the general ranges of goods that are available there by giving things a market rating. And if you take that market rating and you go to the price and availability chart, and you have a player who's like, okay, I need a candelabra, the only real judgment calls you have to make are two. You have to figure out, like, okay, what's the level of development of this market to give it a market rating? And then you have to go to the market rating and say, okay, what level of technology is a candelabra? Is it Stone Age, Bronze Age? Like, what is that, Enlightenment era? I'd say it's Bronze Age. Those things, if it's mentioned in the Bible, that's probably Bronze Age. So, candelabra, there you go. And then you just get the price, and it's as easy as that. So it's like, okay, so you're in a place, let's say it's a fledgling market. You're like, okay, yeah, there's a new and weak ruler here. So we'll call that 2. It's getting reasonably developed. So let's skip on ahead. Price and availability. Market rating 2, and it's a Bronze Age thing. Okay, it costs 5 wealth. Boom. This should have a cost and wealth thing. I just realized nobody knows what these numbers mean. Do they? Let's see. Players have their characters buy things in price and availability as per the price and availability chart. The amount of a given good purchasable in a single market for the same good auctions. Okay, so good note. These need to be in currency. It needs to be clear that this is in wealth. So yeah, it's Bronze Age. Development 2. It would take 5 wealth, 5 pieces of silver or what have you. All right, well, fair enough. Fair cop. That's a little complicated. That's a little unintuitive, but I can clarify that. But I've been writing clarifying text. So there's a little piece of text that I'm calling Economy of a Dead World. The reason you're seeing the lighting change in my face is I'm switching between screens, by the way. And all that does is just kind of talk about like, okay, players wants to buy things. What's do you do? What's do you do when your players wants to buy things? Just find a place where people are buying and selling things, aka a market, and role play it out. Like, what do you think would be available in this market? And I make a general rule, which is specific trumps general. It's there's a price list, but it's very, very genericized. So it kind of is on you as a GM to kind of bring the character, you know. So what's more exotic? Just saying like, oh, you can get food rations for 1 wealth here, or saying like, you know, for the price of 1 silver, you can get a whole slab of salted giraffe meat. Where do they get giraffe meat? You'll have to ask questions, but there's a whole market stall selling it. You know, that's a little more exotic and interesting. You know, if you know their main wares are living squid tendrils that they harvest from some unknown sources and have in giant barrels, and no matter how long you watch them, they continue squirming like a bunch of fat white worms. You see people eating them. They're a delicacy. They kind of taste like sushi. So, do you want some? 1 silver per barrel, you know? Or you could even say, like, you know, a barrel is like, you know, 50 days ration, so it's 50 silver per barrel. Why not? You know, maybe they only sell them in those quantities. You have to, you know, bung the barrel yourself, and it's sold sealed, guaranteed fresh forever. Forever. They just keep a squirming. You know, like that's a little more it's a little more interesting than just I buy food ration that will be X wealth. Even in the real world, we don't really have genericized versions of things like that. Like the closest you can get is like the greater value brand this or that. Even that is pretty like fun, you know. Sure, it's not Captain Crunch, it's Admirable Crispy, but it's still some kind of weird peanut butter and berry cereal, so that's neat. You know, no complaints there. But yeah, I'm adding some clarifying text like that to the stodgier elements of this writing, because like this is an onboarding thing. Like Lone Wolf Fist isn't just for like seasoned role players, it's for everybody. It's supposed to be like baby's first RPG for a lot of the text. And I don't assume that, but it could be. Every RPG could be someone's first RPG. And I want people who read this book to have a pretty good idea of what they need to do with it. So, yeah, it's every time you go into a text to like change it, I feel like as an author it gives you an opportunity to read it and reevaluate it with the wisdom of being outside of that creative fervor and having thought about it for a little while. So, I've got that little piece of clarifying text. I additionally want to put in some clarifying text for things like writing monsters and feeding monsters and keeping them as pets. I think that would be cool. I think monsters as disciples would be neat. They aren't exactly disciples, but, you know, close enough. And just having having a little bit of additional text here and there to kind of soften the rawness of everything. It'll add a little bit of page count, but I mean, it's my dime when it comes to how little money I'm going to make on this thing for stuffing it full of all this stuff and still charging the same price like an idiot. And I would rather have a more complete game than a less complete one, and I would rather have a friendlier one than a more difficult one. So yeah, that's what's currently going on. I'm filling up that writing now that the really one of the most terrible hurdles of the layout is done. I want to finish up that writing and add that in. And then once I do that, it's going to be going through it page by page, making certain all the page numbers still line up, and if they don't, changing them. Adding the hyperlinks will be the next set. And then as a finale, I'm going to do the format of the cover. And then I think that's it. I think I send it off to the printer after that. I'm going to release version 1.2 of the game, which is going to be the reformatted version with the updated text, complete. So everything's in it, and I'm also going to release the print on demand once I get a review copy back that actually meets my standards, which that might take more than one go. I've never done a POD before. We'll see. It's going to be a lovely hardback, and as soon as that's done, we start shipping. Because the print costs have changed since I started this Kickstarter, I may have to do that piecemeal. I initially had enough money just to do it all in one go with the because I didn't have a whole lot of hardback orders. But I've added enough text that the page count is becoming a more significant element of cost than it was before. So I'm going to be careful with that. I've got the same Kickstarter money saved up. I also made a little bit of money from sales of the PDF, which is nice. We had a big boom of sales, got us up to copper, and that included a lot of really heavily discounted copies for reviewers and things like that. So, and I think that everyone on the Discord and different places got they got discounts. I sent discount coupons out to people that had purchased the other stuff. So because I really wanted to see if we could get a metal status really quickly. We got to copper, but it wasn't all at full price. A lot of it was vastly reduced, but we got to copper bestseller, and we've actually made sales at the current full price since then. It's not been many, but as I've wandered around the internet and pitched this game to people, it's impressed some of them. Some of them have been sincerely interested in giving it a try. So we actually made enough money there. And I just kind of put that in the pile with the Kickstarter money because, like, it's business money. I don't want to touch it until I've got this out and I'm thinking about the next project. It's just kind of the more cunning way of doing it, in my estimation. But yeah, so that pile has grown. Again, though, I want to be careful not to completely deplete that because I would really like to do it, to use that money to do stuff like advertisement. I'd like to use that money for the next project. It would be nice to be able to advertise the next Kickstarter more widely. I wasn't able to do that with this one, and that's one of the reasons it really, really, it kind of fell apart the first time, and the second one was shaky, although it was successful. Yeah. Yeah, I want to have a savings as much as possible, so yeah, I might wind up rolling out the hardbacks in smaller batches. I think there's like what 100 and something. There's not many that I'm giving out all said told. And for me, they're going to basically be at cost. I'm going to do the at cost because I think the way you do it on drive-thru is you pay the at cost from whatever account savings that you have on drive-thru RPG, or you can just use your own money, and then you take that purchased coupon and then you send it to someone. So for the hardbacks, that's what's going to happen. That's one of the reasons I sent out the backer surveys and everything, because I needed to have the most up-to-date information, because I'm not going to be physically shipping any of these, hopefully at all. Hopefully drive-thru RPG is going to be taking care of all of that. I'm just going to send you guys the at cost, or not the at cost, but the free coupon, the hit this button and get your physical copy delivered to you coupon. And the only additional cost any of you guys should have should just be whatever shipping costs they charge. Again, that was an element of the Kickstarter. I kind of would prefer to not have to charge you that. Again, I got to be careful with the money here. But yeah, the business part of this is kind of boring. And also I've never done it before. Again, it's weird because you never can anticipate people's sentiment with things. I've defaulted just being super agreeable and nice to everyone because y'all are doing me a favor. This is my dream I'm realizing here thanks to you guys, and I really appreciate everyone who's given me money. So if you come to me with a lot of anger, my response is going to be, as soon as I know about it, let me solve that problem for you, buddy. I want you to be mad. I want you guys to get your games. I made this for you. This is what it's for. So yeah. Honestly, I appreciate the feedback, even if it's really negative. But man, some of it, I wasn't anticipating it. I released the PDF, and then the same day, I went to sleep because I sleep during the day. So I released it, and I was like, cool, whole night's work done. I got to sleep because I got work tonight. So I went to sleep, and I woke up, and I'd already had a wall of messages from people where's my copy? It's wow. I just put it up. I mean, here you go. I don't know. On the one hand, that's a lot of negativity, but on the other hand, it's nice to be wanted. I got to tell you, I was kind of shocked at first. I was like, oh man, I'm getting canceled. But then when that wore off, I was like, oh man, people really want to play Lone Wolf Fist. And that's the one that has endured. So I'm actually really happy about that. Anyway, that's everything this time. I'll talk to you guys later. I'm going to get back to writing. I'll see you guys.